everybody, and welcome to Indianapolis, Indiana. This is Golden Dice Podcast coming from GenCon, and I've got sitting next to me one of the lead designers for Star Wars Unlimited, Danny Schaefer. Danny, pleasure to have you. Really appreciate it.
Be here.
Excellent. How has the con been so far for you? I know you're working a little bit, but how's it been?
It's been good. It's been good. I've had enough free time to kind of like look around, see some cool stuff, and also just like run into so many unlimited players. Just
There's a huge amount of us here.
Yeah.
It is a little ridiculous.
Cool. It's been cool to see and just like talk to people about their decks, like what they're up to, what they're playing.
Yeah, it's been really awesome to be able to connect with a bunch of different people. You obviously have the large 128-man events going on, but then you also have like pods firing off every second, and even this demo area to our side. The entire time. It's really been great to see.
Yeah. It's just cool to see people playing the game, excited about Unlimited. It's awesome.
Anything else at GenCon been catching your eye? Have you got a chance to do demo any other games?
I haven't actually had time to demo. Just been wanting to seeing stuff, getting brief rundowns on games.
Yeah, that's some of the best part. We got to do that a little bit today. We took the day off from the competition, so we got to do the con part, which was nice.
Yeah, it's good to have at least one day to actually just like walk around the exhibit hall, see what GenCon's about.
I definitely agree. All right, so getting into the nitty gritty of it. You're part of the design team of Star Wars Unlimited. What has been your favorite part of designing this game that, we all love to play so much?
Ooh, it's hard to pick one favorite part. I mean, one element is just the team is awesome. We've got, so many great people on it, and people who like bring different perspectives, different like things to the table, right? Like MJ and Tyler always bringing the off the wall, just like deep cut Star Wars ideas. Wacky designs. On the other hand, you got like Ryan, who's very like he's gonna have like the rules knowledge and just bring like the pure mechanical,
the technical side of things too.
Technical side of things. But like all the group dynamic is really awesome. And then just like every new set is just so fun to sit down. You have like a blank canvas of okay, what are the themes going to be here? What are we going to show people they haven't seen before in Unlimited? And especially the next few sets coming up, 3, 4, 5, and even 6 actually, which is not quite done yet. I think each one really brings something new and different to the table where you have to not completely change anything about deck building, but like it really shakes things up in a cool way.
We definitely saw a lot of that with set 2. Obviously, the introduction of Smuggler, that was probably the big one that really changes the way that you think about what you're resourcing, how your resources work, and card advantage especially. There was other mechanics that were introduced in set 2. Going into set 3, what are some things that you had to keep in mind about wanting to add new elements to the game while also not totally reinventing the wheel with each upcoming set?
It's something I have to balance for sure with just how much new stuff do we do. Set 3 I think it's a really cool one because I think unit tokens are something that it just seems like a natural evolution, right? We've had upgrade tokens from the start with shields and XP, and bringing unit tokens in, I think everyone probably assumed it was coming at some point. And Clone Wars is just like the perfect place. You got the droids, you got the clones, natural fit. And then just building from there, just like, okay, unit tokens are going to be the new kind of centerpiece, cool thing in the set. Mm-hmm. What are some keywords that can build off of that? And I think coordinate on the Republic side with just like having a bunch of units in play. Pretty cool. It's a very straightforward, simple mechanic. Yeah. One that like really makes you think about your sequencing again slightly differently, right? Where it's like I want to get this unit into play, or I want to do this before like my opponent takes out my third unit. It really
that's going to be a big deal about maintaining that board state and maintaining like the coordinate levels that you have going on.
Yeah.
Now with something like coordinate, how did you dial that in? How did you dial it into being 3 units as opposed to 4?
Sure,
because 3 with a set 1, meta, set 2 meta, 3 units is a lot on the board sometimes.
Yeah, no, it's true. It's we tested at different numbers for sure. Yeah. Initially, we were like, we thought about 4 for a bit, and that was hard. 3, as you say, even in set 1 and 2 meta, that can be hard to maintain. But as we, with the token generation that exists in the set, with some of the other tools available, we felt like in set 3 now, that's a good level where it's not just always on, it's not free, you do have to work for it. But if you work for it, if you're playing the token makers or playing more of a swarm style deck, you can usually get it turned on when you need it, but your opponent has the ability to interact and sometimes turn it off at a key moment.
Yeah, not only does your opponent have the ability to interact, but it also changes the way you have to interact with your opponent's cards, because maybe you can't make those easy trades that you would just normally make, because you know coming up that you need the kicker, that coordinate to go off on the other cards that you're going to play.
Yeah, and it's one of my favorite parts of Unlimited is just figuring out your role in the matchup, right? Is this a matchup where I want to be trading? Is this one where I want to hit base? Or just try not to trade if I can avoid it, and coordinate really, especially coordinating the more mid-range or controlling effects. It's like, maybe I'm against an aggro opponent, I need to trade, but I also want my coordinate on. How do I balance that out? It's also like with the arenas really come into it a lot too, where sometimes maybe it's hard to keep coordinate because your opponent has strong ground, but you got like cartel spacers, some other cheap spacers.
Yeah, you got the little thing hanging out in space. That's like a one.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's definitely that little like early space unit that you play that sticks around the whole game and ends up dealing like 12 or 13 damage in the end, but just sticks there because nobody wants to deal with it. Can definitely help with the
it can be that third unit a lot of the time. But then the other new mechanic, obviously in set 3, is exploit.
Yeah,
I bet so many exploit decks in playtesting over the last.
That seems like one that's a really, really difficult to dial in from a deck building standpoint.
Yeah, you really have to figure out, how you're going to deck build around it. Obviously battle droids are going to be the classic way to turn it on, but there's a lot of other cute stuff you can do just with cheap units, and we haven't seen that many exploit cards yet, of course.
Yeah,
hard for me to get too into weeds on it right now, but there are some where it's like, oh, this is if I exploit one unit early on in the game, maybe it's still pretty good. Maybe I just get the tempo play to get ahead. There's others where you might want to exploit. You want to be sacrificing like 3 battle droid tokens to get something out really cheap, really early. And depending on which of those angles you're aiming more towards, it's going to change your deck building a lot. But with I think we saw in the video or the article yesterday, the 3-cost battle droid escort.
Yeah, the one that
when it comes to play. There's several different tools like that are good for setting up exploit, where you play that on round 2. Round 3, you can be pretty confident you're going to be able to exploit 2 if you need to.
Yeah, because even if they've destroyed that character, the token's coming out after, and it's just hard to keep up the action economy to constantly keep killing 1/1 characters.
Yeah, right, exactly. You don't spend an attack on a 1/1.
Yeah, you might have the bodies, but you're just not like spending the time.
Yeah. So it really, I found exploit decks especially, they're difficult to play optimally. You have to like figure out how many, because you're usually making a bunch of tokens too, and how much do I keep in play? How much do I exploit? How much do I go all in on one unit? But they can also be so hard to play against, where, again, if your opponent's dropping a giant exploit unit, you want to be playing like Power of the Dark Side or something, but sometimes they don't go all in. Sometimes they're just swarming you with tokens, and you're like, your spot removal looks a little less effective.
Yeah, that Power of the Dark Side definitely gets a lot weaker when it's, you've got a bunch of 1/1 battle droids that can kind of like soak it like a blade of armor on the table.
Yeah.
But that's really interesting just in regards to exploit and like the deck building process. You're going to have 2 separate costs, almost like the way Smuggle works in a lot of ways. You have 2 separate costs built into these cards, and you need to think about, am I straight playing this? Am I playing this for my, resource row? But in this case, am I setting up the sacrifice so that I can get it down for cheaper?
Yeah, exactly. Am I playing this for 6 or 4 or 2? And changes from game to game. Yeah.
Now, you had mentioned earlier that tokens were kind of always an expected part of the game. Were they part of the initial design philosophy of the game? You knew that they were going to be coming in, but you just didn't know what set you were going to be putting them in at?
Yeah, exactly that. Okay. When we first built the system, we're like, we're going to have tokens. We don't know when we want to bring them in, though. We want to keep set 1 kind of basic, focused on the fundamentals of the gameplay. And then some point in the first year and a half, we knew we wanted to bring in unit tokens, expand the game out that way. And it really just ended up, kind of as I alluded to before, where we knew we were going to do Clone Wars for set 3. And once that was locked in, we're like, clones and droids are so natural to be.
Yeah, that seems to be the just the legions, the endless legions of the Empire, the endless separatist droid hordes. Those seem to be the ones that would make the most sense for tokens. So I can definitely see how, like, once you keyed in that set 3 was going to be where you were visiting the Clone Wars primarily, because every set we've had a little bit from the Clone Wars. Set 1, we have Dooku, we had Mace Windu. Set 2, we've had a little bit more of expanded because you've got the seedy underbelly of Hondo, since he spans, the entirety of the Star Wars generation. Because he's a survivor. That's, that's what he does best. Plays both sides of it. So when you're creating a new set, how do you work around introducing new leaders? We've seen that, like, just with the recent tournaments that we've seen a lot of set 1 leaders doing really well in set.
Yeah, it's true.
How do you manage the balance between, like, power creep, but then also wanting these new leaders to kind of break their way into the meta?
For sure. It's that's one of the trickiest things, for sure, especially I mean, I think we all know some of the set 1 leaders that kind of are defining their roles. Like Sabine is a classic where
Sabine is the aggro.
It's hard to make a pure aggro leader that's like can out aggro Sabine without just power creeping aggro in the metagame, right? So what we really try to do in a new set is look for how can we carve out new kinds of identities within those major archetypes with these new leaders, where it's Ahsoka is also an aggro leader, but she's
comes out very early.
Comes out on 5. Can attack for 5 if you have coordinate. But she's not like just burning your opponent's base, deploying on 4, all in aggression the way Sabine is. She's a little more of, you got to build up your board presence. You got to, play at least maybe a slightly slower game than Ahsoka with Sabine and say like, oh yeah, it's a different angle. And then obviously some leaders go more extreme where they're, I mean, I can't talk about too many set 3 leaders yet. But
we've only seen, we've only seen a few. 4?
We've seen two starter leaders, and we saw art for. I think people are assuming will be leaders, but we haven't actually seen their cards yet. So yeah, it's a lot of that though. It's a lot of maybe this leader cares about a particular trait and we'll build in that direction, or maybe this leader is a control leader, but they're in a different color combination. Didn't have a control leader before.
Yeah, say like just looking at from the aggro angle, Sabine's obviously the tentpole of that, but then you have Kylo on the villainy side. So definitely, well, even in some ways, Bosk even can embody that a little bit, where you weren't necessarily getting that same angle. There wasn't really as many like aggro decks, especially not featuring red on the dark side through set 1, where Sabine had carved out that niche on the light side really well.
Yeah. And so in the future, maybe it's a cunning leader or a command leader, where it's like, oh, now if I want to play a yellow-green aggro, obviously Sabine can't do that. You can play in that direction instead. Control is also actually, I think, coming up in set 3, not to give too much away, but
there's at least as much away as possible.
No specifics, but there's at least a couple leaders in set 3 that are on the like later deploy, very like more controlling abilities on the hero side. Kind of getting rid of that.
I haven't seen as much.
Jabba
and Palpatine on the dark side. I haven't seen an equivalent on the light side yet. I think the latest deploying light side leader is Hunter.
Yep.
Yeah, and he's not as
Yeah, he's kind of got a weird build.
He's gonna find his identity.
Yeah, exactly. So he's gonna I think come into his own more as you get more just more cards from the card pool, right?
Yeah, definitely. Play, have the same name.
More that have the same name. Yeah, exactly.
So when you're designing the starter decks, we obviously saw with set 1 there was a dynamic with Luke and Vader, where Luke is generating the shields, but Vader has the almost like built-in counter to the shields with the hood damage that he's able to do, and there's a dynamic between those two. Because obviously in a starter environment, a shield can be an extremely powerful thing.
Yeah.
And then in set 2, we had Moff Gideon with the tempo and being more about the storms, but then we had Mandalorian with this exhaustibility being more of a almost the quote-unquote Voltron leader, where you're putting upgrades on him and his other characters. What type of dynamic are you trying to come up with the set 3 starter leaders? You have your General Grievous and you have your Ahsoka.
Yeah, so Tyler Parrott actually did a lot of the design on the set 3 starters.
Okay.
So if you ever get a chance to talk to him, you can go more in depth.
Yeah.
But the big thing is kind of back to a point we were talking about earlier, where you often don't want to spend an attack on a battle droid token, right?
Yeah, it seems like bad, bad effort.
Exactly, yeah. So Ahsoka is more on the aggressive side. She's trying to swarm you with units, hit you hard, come out early. And Grievous is kind of the counterbalance to that, where Grievous can give Sentinel to a droid and say, yeah, this droid's probably not gonna kill your unit. You're gonna be able to keep coordinate, but it's gonna be a roadblock. You're gonna have to hit this 1/1. And if you time it right, like, maybe that's a waste a really good attack on the 1/1 battle droid.
Sentinel's like a heal sometimes. You're not there to kill anything. You're just there to get in the way and make the game go that extra turn or two so that then you can start seeing, the bigger stuff that claws back into the game, like your reinforcement walkers, your Vaders, and things of that nature.
Yep. And then, of course, Grievous being a separatist leader, you're going to see some exploit out of his deck as well. Ahsoka's very go wide, multiple units in play. Grievous is going to have the battle droids, but then convert them.
He's culling. He's culling his horde and cashing it in when it feels most advantageous.
Grievous does not care about individual.
He cares about all the clones. Whereas General Grievous really couldn't care about an individual battle.
Yeah, he will throw any droid in front of himself to keep himself safe for sure.
Now, designing a new set, what are the kind of core philosophies you have about, designing for game longevity, for, keeping the game around for a long time?
Yeah, there's a few things we really think about in every set. One is obviously this set needs to have a cool identity, something for people to latch onto, something for people to feel like, this is bringing something new and cool to the game. Set 2, it was obviously like Smuggle is a huge one. This is a new mechanic that can really wrap my head around and really build around it and feel great about. And bounty capture as well. And it's doing that without making the overall game just like explode in complexity, right? We don't want it to feel like you get to set 6 and it's like, oh, this is a different game than what I started with. We still want it to feel like the core of Unlimited. We want those resource decisions to matter. We want the sequencing to matter. We want like the same gameplay that people love to still be what the game is about, but just say, oh, here's some new twists on deck building. Here's maybe some shifts in the metagame. So you're playing with different cards, different kinds of decks, different styles, but you're still fundamentally, it's the game you love. It's those resource decisions, that sequencing, like where do I attack, when do I bring out my leader, all those kind of things. Keep the heart of the game the same. And so with every new set, we're trying to figure out what are the mechanics that can, like shape a new direction, but also still feel like core to Unlimited. There's some great examples that I can't really.
You love
coming up in year 2, where it's like, oh, this is like, because it's a new thing, but it feels so part of the gameplay, right? It's just like it's playing right into the decisions I'm already caring about and thinking about.
Yeah. I can definitely understand how, like, as you're moving into the second year of design, the 4, 5, and 6, how now you're having to consider, like, all right, how much rules have we added onto the game? Like, when is too much too much? Maybe, we need to have a set where things are a little bit, we're not introducing as many new
as many mechanics. Maybe, it's just like one big new keyword or something like that. And both for the players who've been playing from the start, you like want that gameplay, but also just knowing that, like, our hope is new players will be coming into the game all the time.
You always
someone starts in set 5, we don't want it to be like a huge barrier coming in.
Because I feel like definitely, set 1, obviously a little bit more simple than the game in set 2. But, I found really like the smuggle mechanic, it's added to the game in a very logical way. Being able to play some things from your resource row, it's not, overly abundant unless you're playing a hero like Hondo, where, you drop a tech on the table and that's a whole different ballgame. But, those things are balanced around and can be removed from play. So, smuggle's definitely been a very refreshing introduction to a new mechanic, adding a lot to the game without actually, exponentially increasing that complexity.
And Smuggle is one of my favorite examples, actually, because it does give you more options, just more things to play with. You have basically extra cards in your hand in the late game. But when we were testing Smuggle early on, we would always play it, make sure to play it with some of the like newer or more casual players in the office or casual playtesters. And they love it too, just because it makes the resource decision at the start so much easier. It's like, oh, there's a smuggle card in my hand. I guess I'll put that down as my resource.
Unless you're staring down a green deck and they're going to scanning officer you. But
true.
That's only if you're...
That's thinking like one level up, right? So I love smuggle. It just fits right into the system, makes things simpler in a lot of ways, but also just adds those options.
Now, out of the set 3 starter leaders that we've seen, do you have a favorite? Do you have a starter deck that you gravitate towards when you're doing some of that play testing?
It's interesting because I would say, as a character, I'm a big Grievous fan. I always gravitate towards Grievous, towards the droids, the stuff he's about. But play style wise, I do actually like Ahsoka a little more. I'm kind of I have a reputation on the team for being the aggro player. I like control decks too, but I think nobody else is quite as into just playing the all aggro as me. So I tend to, whenever there's a new aggro leader, I'm like, all right, I got to take them for a spin, see how good they are. So play style wise, I do like Ahsoka a lot.
Who's the big control, player out of the devs?
John Leo loves control. He
pulled the showcase Palpatine early. I pulled the next one. We were the first two to have it. We had a little moment over that.
Yeah.
So I can see how that he kind of shaped the play style.
Every new set that we play test, his first thing is, all right, what are the new cards for Blue Green Palpatine? Gonna try it out. And he's got some other leaders in future sets as well that he loves, but a lot of them that vary. Just like remove everything, kind of control vein. I'm probably second, honestly, in terms of control, because I, especially when set 3 comes around, there's some hero control decks that I started playing and refining and building new versions of throughout set 4, set 5, set 6. I'm excited for the direction hero control goes in the future.
Have you seen any decks throughout the events that have been playing? Like, have you seen or heard of any decks that are particularly like interesting to you or kind of piqued your interest?
Oh, there are a ton of exciting ones. The one that I think it won the big tournament yesterday was set 2 Han Blue, and I'm just a huge, like I said, John always updates his Palpatine deck every set. I make a new set 2 Han deck every new set we play test, and it's a different color every time. Like one set it's like, oh yeah, we got some cool new yellow cards for set 2 Han. Next set it's like, oh, there's some good green cards, and set 2 Han Blue is a deck I played a lot in playtesting. But yeah, that version I saw yesterday, it was awesome. I love seeing decks like that do well.
Now, is that an approach that you kind of take to designing? You mentioned how you and John will like update certain decks. Are you taking an approach when you're designing a new set, being like, hey, what is the quote unquote Palpatine player, quote unquote Han 2 player? What are they going to be looking for in this new set? Like, what do we want to give each individual archetype, but even each individual hero?
Yeah, it's something we think about a lot, and it's interesting because there's sort of stages to the design and testing process, right? Where early on, you're designing 18 new leaders for a set, and you really are trying to get as many reps in with those new leaders as possible, and say like, okay, how does this? Like we're playing on draft and sealed actually. Say how do these play in limited? How do like the new leaders play with the new mechanics? Like get that in as much as possible, and then you get to a point where it's like, okay, new leaders feel like they're in an okay spot. Let's make sure that we got some fun toys for the past leaders as well. Yeah. And sometimes it just fits naturally, right? Like, I'm gonna stop using set 1 Palpatine as an example at some point. But obviously, battle droid tokens. Battle droid tokens with a guy who likes.
I'm very excited for tokens for being able to throw things at my opponent.
Yeah, like we didn't need to do anything extra to make Palpatine feel good in set 3. But there's other leaders, especially like I had a lot of people ask me this weekend actually, when are we gonna get more toys for like Leia and Tarkin for set 1? And obviously, Clone Wars, not a lot of Rebels or Imperials floating around.
No.
But coming down the pipeline, I can say for sure, like, we think about that and we say, okay, with this set's theme, can we get some good Rebels in here? Leia wants some Rebels. Can we get good Mandalorians for both? Yeah. Like, we always look for that kind of stuff.
Yeah, because there's always, like, that side character that would fit into the vein, like, whether it's, even in set 2, you have the lurking TIE Phantom.
Yep.
It fits very much into the theme of, the outskirts, the fringe. That's one of Thrawn's, big play toys, the TIE Phantom program, and things like that. So, you get a lot of use out of that. But it works really great in Tarkin. You see Tarkin Space. I think one of Tarkin Space decks yesterday, top 16.
Yeah.
So, that's, even just one unit can really kind of define a new archetype for a new hero.
Yeah, it's a hero. Like even like Cassian in set 2 is like he fits and he's a rebel. I don't know if Leia is quite has enough from set 2 to say like the top tables, but I think Cassian's great for her.
Yeah. Now, is there a particular leader that you're most excited for everyone to see? Obviously, without giving too much away, you can even like just give the card number or even like the aspects.
There are a couple. There's one that I don't even know how to give a hint for, but it's a very prominent Clone Wars. I'll just say a very prominent Clone Wars villain gets a really cool leader in set 3. Yeah. That's all I can really say about that one. I would say the 2 leaders I played most out of set 3, we haven't seen either of them yet. One is a red hero who plays quite differently, I think, than any of the other Red Hero cards we have so far. Red Hero Leader. It's very different play style. And the other one is Green Villain that just plays so well into the themes of set 3, but then going forward in set 4, 5, 6, it's like every set there's 1 or 2 extra toys that leader gets that I just have to update the deck and build a new version because he's so fun.
I'm hyped now because I play a lot of Green Villain because it's Palpatine all day. Unfortunately for me, because I can't seem to find another leader that I love more than him. So maybe there'll be something in set 3 that can pique my interest and get me putting the Palpatine away. But
yeah, they're both the Green Villain leaders in set 3. I will say they're like just brand new, like different deck builds than you would do in set 1 or 2.
Yep,
it's pretty exciting.
Is there a particular non-leader card in set 3 that you're excited about, or that you had like a particular like hand in designing?
There are a few. Boy, I can't give too many hints.
I know, it's so hard.
The card I am notorious for playing the most is just a random common unit in yellow with exploit. That just it's the most innocuous looking card, and I just started playing it in almost every deck, and so I have a reputation for it playtesting wise. So common yellow exploit card is one, and then there's a blue villain legendary that I just love. I don't know, it's like a true build around for like I think a non-leader just build around card that is super exciting. You'll know when you see it.
Yeah,
it's awesome.
That's great when we have legendaries like that are they themselves like the build around card. Like you even saw it a little bit in set 2, like Crate Dragon. Yeah, that's a card that you can build a deck around and design around, and we saw that a little bit with some of the other legendaries in set 1. But Danny, I really appreciate you taking the time to speak with us. Sure. We really appreciate it. We really appreciate you, everyone that is tuning in to watch this we're coming from GenCon now. It's Friday. I'm sure this will be up when we get back. But, want to thank everybody. Want to thank you again. Thank FFG for allowing you to speak with us. And, really appreciate it. Really loving the game. Like, it's just great every time we come up to a big event and we see everybody that's so excited to be here. And that's not just the players. That's especially everybody that works at FFG that we go act with. Yeah. You guys are the most excited, and you'll play and listen to the dumbest stories possible from Flopton and Brian. So hats off to you.
Thank you so much. Yeah, it's always love talking about Star Wars. I appreciate you taking the time.
Yeah, appreciate it.
Thank you.